On 20th November 2018, I received Guanping Bodhisattva's instruction to visit the tongue-carving hell and watch a trial at the hall of the King of Hell. My consciousness entered a deep slumber. As I felt myself becoming light, I found myself before a black and ancient-looking gate. One of the guards told me to follow him, and we entered this hell, the tongue-carving hell. Those who commit abusive speech, fabricated rumors, and sowed discord, and those who have slandered and defamed the practitioners of any religion will be punished here. I walked down some stairs near the gate that led to the bottom of this hell. The place was huge, and when I looked up, I saw that it was surrounded by walls about 6 stories high, built from massive bricks. There were many offenders here, both male and female, and all of them were kneeling, wailing, and crying. It was evident that many people had committed deeds of verbal misconduct in the human realm. I paid my respect to the enforcement officers in charge of this hell. 2 female offenders' mouths were being forcibly pried open so that the enforcement officers could violently grab and hold their tongues. Using a sharp knife, the officers carved line after line into the offenders' tongues. Fresh blood flowed down their chins immediately. The offenders watched on with horror-filled eyes and tried desperately to step backward, but they were roughly pulled back in line by the officers. The officers showed no concern about the bleeding. They simply continued to carve lines into the offenders' tongues. Once the tongues of the 2 female offenders had been carved with a dozen lines, they were escorted to see the King of Hell. The enforcement officers signaled for me to follow them into his hall. The landscape inside Hell Realm is very complex. If I hadn't been guided by an enforcement officer, I would have been hopelessly lost. After walking down a narrow and winding path in the underworld for some time, we arrived at the hall of the King of Hell. The King of Hell ordered the offenders to kneel. I stood beside the king, watching the trial. As the king began to scold them, both of you were practitioners of Guanyin Sita Dharma Door, and you understood that you mustn't commit deeds of verbal misconduct. Why did you think you could use sophistry and prejudiced views to criticize the Dharma Door before your relatives? I have checked your records. Some months ago, you quit practicing Guanyin Sita Dharma Door, but when you encountered difficulties, you returned to this Buddhist practice for help, beseeching Guanyin Bodhisattva's succor. Despite having returned to the practice, you still don't reform your ways. You should know that there are Dharma protectors everywhere, and they will record every word and action said and done by Buddhists in the human realm. You have been blessed and protected by the Buddha, so you should be making more effort to observe the Buddhist precepts and understand the rules. Why do you arrogantly hold on to ignorance and bad habits? Regardless of your reasons and excuses, even if it's other practitioners at fault, you should never have spoken irresponsibly about Guanyin Sita. If your fellow practitioner is truly in the wrong, the Dharma protectors will naturally give them a lesson according to the law. Do you think that heaven and the underworld will tolerate them? But now your negative karma has been created, and I have no choice but to punish you according to the law. I will give an order for your souls to return to the bodies in the human world. But do not create any more negative karma. Look out for yourselves. After the both of you return to the human world, your tongue will ache and hurt for several days. Serious offenders develop cold sores around their mouth. When Buddhist practitioners commit offenses, the Dharma protecting bodhisattvas trigger their negative karma directly so that it becomes present life karmic retribution. The king of hell told me that, regardless of whether a person is dead or alive, their souls will be dragged to the underworld for punishment if they commit offenses. The soul of the culprit will be deemed an offender